So we are back with former Mirage 3 and 5 pilot Fahad Masood to talk about the relatively recent India-Pakistan conflict. So can you talk us through this, Fahad?
Okay, so a supposed terrorist attack took place in Pahalgam on the 22nd, and this is 22nd of April. And suddenly things furballed from that point onwards, and everybody got hyped that something is going to happen. Previously, in 2019, similar circumstances between Pakistan and India had come about, and the pattern did not change this time as well. But the culmination of military operations from the Indian side was on the 6th and 7th night in between, around 1200, or well, 12 a.m., let's take it that way, 000 hours. And that is when the Indian side initiated their attack. There was a lot of hue and cry beforehand that there is going to be something. So the threat perception was there on the Pakistani side. The air defense alert aircraft were already airborne as soon as there were radar blips or tracks heading towards the Pakistan's LOC line of control, which is in Kashmir, the working boundary, which is in Sialkot, and the international border. So that is where it all started from, and I believe majority, if not everyone, understands post event that this was the longest air combat that took place after Second World War, about 55 minutes to an hour, and this was all BVR. That's another interesting predicament. So beyond visual range missiles at this level were never have been used before. Force projection from the Indian side was about 75 odd fighter aircraft. On the Pakistani side, about 40, give or take a few. So in the limited airspace, where time, space, and relative strength (TSR) was projected both in focused and forced projections were strong. In this whole situation, there were multiple BVRs fired on from both sides of the fence. The number that has been approved by or announced by Donald Trump yesterday is 7-0. So that makes it even more interesting. Let's wait and see how things further move ahead. So there were Rafaels on the Indian side, the MiG 29s, Su-30s, and the Mirage 2000. On the Pakistani side, there were the J-10Cs with support from the Block 3 JF-17 Thunder aircraft. F-16s were standing by if any eventuality came about and further support was required.
Yeah, so why were the F-16s kind of in the back? Why weren't they at the forefront of the conflict?
Good or bad, the situation is now a lot to do with the longer stick. The AIM
Right.
120 C5 on the F-16 Block 52s are a bit short than what is there on the J-10 and the Block 3, which is known as the PL-15A missile, which is a BVR ranging to anything between 150 to 300 kilometers, depending on the version that we have. So that is why the F-16s were kept for support element, but not as the mainstay, just like what happened in the 2019 skirmish.
So yeah, what kind of missiles were used on both sides? Obviously for Pakistan and India in the air war.
So the Indians were on the offensive initially. They were to take out supposedly the terrorist camps within the Pakistan's land space. So they used air to surface missile technology, which included scalps as well as the BrahMos. which supposedly, as per them, took out a pinpoint accuracy the non-state actors or the terrorists on Pakistan soil. So that is what was there from the Indian side. On the other hand, the Pakistani side used the PL-15, which is a very long-range BVR, and which was successfully employed to get a number of for Donald Trump recently. Initially, it was zero. It was announced on the first day. So that is where the numbers were. And I believe the OSINT sources which have come across with intel on the Indian side, the losses were verified as well as through the Martin Baker's seat compilation, which takes place every time we there is a Martin Baker ejection that takes place, and the pilot survives it as well. So a few sources on the Indian side, and the as it was a BVR fight, all aircrafts were not crossing the adversary's airspace or the line of control or the border. So it was within Indian territory and Indian airspace that this thing had taken place. So long range missiles, one side, standoff weapon capability on the other.
And you have to ask, obviously, like we're gonna probably get into it, but the J-10, obviously being like a Chinese aircraft, did the Chinese like interject in terms of like how the war went, or like how the air, like the air-to-air BVR went, and if so, how did they feel about it?
So there was a lot of claims by the Chinese in the international market before this skirmish took place related to competencies, capabilities, and skills that the J-10 as well as the PL-15 carried. But there were no verifications. This time around, it was verified at the longer ranges beyond what the M120C5 and the adversary BVR missile technology was. So, support, yes, I would say, by giving the J-10Cs and the PL-15s was there, but nothing beyond that really. Maybe diplomatic support, that can be one, but the fight was taken by the Pakistan Air Force to the Indians as soon as the Scalp and Brahmos missiles were impacting Pakistan's soil, not on the LOC but the international border.
Yeah. And obviously, one of our favourite subjects on the channel is DACT BFM. How do you think the J-10 JF-17 would fare against a Rafale in close quarters?
Okay, so J-10 is similar to the airframe, yes. But if we look at the engine performance, the Rafael has two, J-10 has one. So the um, pounds of thrust, there's a difference. That being said, it has canards, both airframes. It is similar to a relative Delta aircraft, both sides, but the technology airframe integration of the J-10 is relatively new technology as well. So Rafael, the first tranche that came across with India, were the earlier versions of the Rafael, not the tranche 4, which is now in the market at various fronts, which the French Air Force are flying. So it would have been a good battle in within visual range dogfight scenarios. But if we were to look at missile technology, the Hobbs on the with the PL-10 on the J-10, it would have also played a role. Hemix on board helmet mounted devices which have been shown, if not tested, battle tested this time around, would have also played a role. So it would have been interesting. It would have
Mm.
been very interesting, to be exact.
Yeah, and obviously, like you're a former Mirage 3 and 5 pilot, how would them aircraft fare against, like that war, like going against the Rafale or whatever, like they put up?
It's a very different ball game right now.
Yeah.
The Mirage 3 and 5 both are 1950s platform, originally manufactured, designed. It's good at what it does, which is now A to ground. But at that point in time, it was a force to reckon with. Not anymore. Nowadays, the fight is all to do with data fusion, sensor fusion, ESA technology, radar capability, integration of space, EW. So Mirage was and still is, I would be very candid, still is not as good at as what the Rafael from Dasu or the J10C generates, because of all the aforementioned capabilities that it carries. So if it was the 50s or 60s, maybe even 70s, I would have said that it would have been a fair fight. This time around, not really. Even to the degree of the Mirage 2000, I don't believe, with the statistics that it holds and the
Mm.
capability that it carries, it would fare too well, may it be against the Rafael as well as the J10C.
Yeah, absolutely. And you kind of mentioned like SAMs there, Fahad, but was that a big threat to the Pakistan Air Force?
That is correct. Namely, the S-400 is a very potent integrated layered air defense system which facilitated India for at least the first 3 days before the 10th. So there was a lot of risk, and those risks were managed and managed pretty well by the use of various methods to counter the threat. And suddenly, it was not utilized in the first 3 days. That being said, the Indian Air Force, after 3 months, came across with a claim of an S-400 shooting down a big bird at
Mm.
about 300 kilometers. I believe the timing as well as the claim is not substantiated or cannot be substantiated because of one being so delayed a claim, and second, 300 kilometers, a big bird at high altitude, maybe block 3,
Mm.
block 2, even block 4 would be doable. But once again, as I mentioned earlier, the verification of claims by OSINT sources in on the Indian side, related to the shooting down of the 7 aircrafts, were pretty much there immediately afterwards, if not in the same night. But there's nothing on the claims that came across from India. May it be at that point in time, between 6th and 10th, or may it be even now.
Mhm.
So not a lot of weightage in that in that category right now.
And our viewers might be thinking, do Pakistan have like SAMs, S-400s, or anything like comparable to that?
So HQ-19B was the go-to SAM technology that was there. This is plus minus equivalent to the S-300, and it's a Chinese surface-to-air missile. It was utilized at both offensive and defensive measures at one point in time, and successfully as well, to some degrees. Yes, there were loopholes in the system. Yes, there are learning points both on the Pakistani and the Indian side, which need to be covered up and catered for the next conflict, which is supposedly expected sometime in the near future as well.
Oh wow. Can you maybe share a bit more about that? Like why is it expected, Fahad?
Okay, so it's more to do with the political stint. The timeline and the timing of the 2019 Pulwama and the Pahalgam attack of this time around uh, very closely intersects with the Indian elections at various places.
Right.
So this is a trend. Now it is a trend because it's happened twice.
Mhm.
So the elections coming up again with on the Indian side, this can be considered as a ploy to gain votes from the ruling party in India. So nobody is letting their guard down. The PAF on our side and the IAF on the other, they are all keeping their guards up, expecting something to materialize or take place sometime not too far in the distant future.
Right. And how do you feel about that? Like that whole like situation coming up?
Not too good, to be very exact. Remember, these are two nuclear state countries
Yeah.
where the nuclear ladder or the threshold can be breached. And when that happens, it's not only going to be India and Pakistan which is going to be affected, it's going to be
Mhm.
the whole region, if not the world. And the nuclear winds will take effect. All the way into Turkey on one side, if the wind's blowing that way. On the other side, the GCC and the Middle East. On the eastern side, nothing will be let go because if it happens, God forbid, I hope it does not, and the thresholds are breached, then nuclear war is not a good option.
Absolutely not. And how do you feel, obviously, as an academic and a former fighter pilot, how do you feel about this? Like you personally, do you think it's ridiculous, or do you think like, okay, we can sort something out? You know, we can meet in the middle here.
So, out of history, military history, any and every conflict that we read about or investigate has ended up on the negotiation table.
Mhm.
Who negotiates from the position of strength and who negotiates otherwise is the question mark.
Mhm.
So I believe a lot of deliberation can be done, should be done between the two countries so that this thing does not recur, where
Mhm.
we are threatening not only the two countries but the region and the world with a possible nuke scenario. And considering everything that is there, fog of war is not the best of place to be
No.
between two nuclear powered countries.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Fahad, like, what do you think the future holds for the Pakistan Air Force, and your opinion, your personal opinion about that?
So, as I mentioned, learning points both sides. Pakistan has to have a more integrated SAM or an air defense system, which is surface based, which can take out projectiles. But we have seen in the recent past the war between Iran and Israel, where the Iron Dome was considered to be very
Yeah.
potent. Yet projectiles from Israel were able to impact Tel Aviv and the lot. So there has to be working done on that side on the Pakistan domain. There are rumors, if not information, of the J-35 coming in with the AEWC KJ-500, if I'm not wrong, that's the name,
Mm.
and the and another surface-to-air missile system. So to and I believe it's all to do with closing the loops or the learning points that were taken during this 88-hour war between India and Pakistan. So let's wait and see. But for now, the social media is alight with this information, but not too many clarifications from the Pakistan Air Force. So let's wait and see.
Absolutely. Well, thank you very much for giving your opinion on, the relative recent events, which was May. But yeah, Fahad, can we find you online and maybe people can, like have a chat with you in more in depth?
Absolutely, absolutely. I'm on LinkedIn. I'll share with you my LinkedIn profile. I'm not on any other social media, so don't search me on Snapchat and Instagram and all the lot. I'm not there. But before I part ways, so this is something which the which way or how the wars are going to be fought in the future, and it's a lot to do with spectrum domination. It's a lot to do with multi-domain operations, which include space, EW,
Yep.
AWACS, AEW, ISR platforms, as well as the fighter elements. The nodes that are there need to be strong. Data security has to be there, and there is no other way. As I mentioned, learning points for both sides. The com links need to be secure. They need to be redundant so that there is no issue of communication gaps between the fighter and the support elements. And something which is on the doctrinal scale of things. I believe this time around, there is a contemporary strategist, air power strategist. His name is Sean Clark. He's from New Zealand. His theory of SPOT, which is strategic, persuasive, oriented targeting, was utilized to a great degree, if not an absolute one, by Pakistan Air Force. And I believe, once again, in the future, this thing will and can be utilized with the multi-domain kill chain that was created by Pakistan in the point in time. On the Indian side, on the other hand, I believe there is a lot more to do with tactics, a lot more to do with utility of the various elements, the integration of those elements so that they are fighting as a unit, as a whole, instead of being a platform based fight where the Rafael considers themselves to be superior or independent of the Mirage 2000s and vice versa. Su-30, known as the Asian Raptor, has got a lot of potential, needs to be utilized in its true letter and spirit. Although MiG 29 is fading away gradually, but it still is a potent weapon system. So that being said, a lot of learning point on both sides need to be addressed before the next skirmish takes place. Um, but I believe this time around, the battle, if not the war, was won by Pakistan. And the Indian side has already said that this is an operational pause between the ops that are taking place, which is Operation Sindoor, and let's see how things move ahead. The world should not be kept on the brink of nuclear war.
Hmm.
So I believe international players elements have a lot of role to play. This includes countries like USA, includes Saudi, China, Russia. They need to ensure that this 88-hour war, which happened last time, does not prolong, and either
Hmm.
side is not forced to utilize the N option.
Absolutely. Well, I'm gonna lighten up. Like, I've got one more question here for Dad. So we're gonna like lighten it up here. If you could fly one aircraft currently in Pakistan, the military, like what would you fly?
So we're still flying the Mirages. The Pakistan Air Force is still flying the Delta Mirage 3 and 5. So for me, I believe this would be the go-to jet because I
Right.
have and we fighter pilots call it seat of the pants. We fighter
Yeah.
pilot call it being one with the aircraft. So been there, done that. These latest jets are beyond me, to be very exact. Glass
Right.
cockpits, HEMX, HMDs. I would go into a TMI state very quickly. Too much information for my
Yeah.
brain to
Yeah.
manage. So these guys presently, both sides of the border have done extremely well utilizing their platforms. But once again, for me, my go-to jet is the trusty old Delta with the Mirage 3 or the Mirage 5, either one.
Brilliant stuff. Well, Fahad, thank you very much for coming on the show. It's been like amazing talking to you, and you giving your like expertise on the recent events. But yeah, I'm sure we'll have you on again. So thank you very much.
Pleasure being here. Take care and have a good one. Hasta la
Cheers.
vista.
Cheers.